Today we are going to review sections 7.5 to 7.8, which we covered this week. First, let's review section 7.5, find a percent. What percent of 300 is 12? What percent of 300 is 12? First, let's use the percent formula method. So percent tells you how many hundredths you have. We're trying to figure out the percent, so let's use x over 100. And percent is always equal to the is number over the of number. So the is number in this case is 12. The of number in this case is 300. We have equal fractions, so we can cross multiply and solve for x. Or in this case, since 100 goes into 300 3 times, and we have equal fractions, the top must also be multiplied by 3. So what number times 3 is 12? 4 times 3 is 12, so x is 4. And 4 hundredths is equal to 4%, since percent tells you how many hundredths you have. So 4% of 300 is 12. Let's check the answer. Let's see if 4% of 300 really is 12. So percent tells us how many hundredths we have, so 4% is equal to 4 over 100. Of before a number is a multiplication. Therefore, of 300 is times 300. Is means equals. Now we can cancel out 2 zeros on top with 2 zeros on the bottom, since we're multiplying. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 divided by 1 is 12. So we get 12 equals 12, which of course is true. Therefore, 4% must be the correct answer. 4% of 300 really is 12. You could also convert 4% into a decimal by moving the decimal point 2 places to the left to make it 0.04. And 0.04 times 300, if you work that out, it equals 12. So that's another way of checking. Now let's use the proportion method. Actually, that was the proportion method. There's the percent formula method. What percent of 300 is 12? So yeah, that was the proportion method. Now let's use the percent formula method. So up here we set up a proportion, which means 2 equal ratios or 2 equal fractions. For the percent formula method, you convert the sentence into an algebraic equation. So we have what percent tells you how many hundredths you have, so that's x over 100. And then of 300 means times 300, of before numbers multiplication. Is 12 means equals 12. We cancel out 2 zeros on top with 2 zeros on the bottom since we're multiplying. All right, so x times 3 is 3x, and 3x divided by 1 is just 3x. 3 times 4 is 12, so x equals 4. Or you can divide each side by 3 using a fraction line to indicate division. The 3's cancel out, 12 divided by 3 is 4, so x equals 4. So now we have 4 over 100, which is 4%. Okay, now let's review section 7.6. Find the original number or the base. solve 25% of what number is 8? (25% of what number is 8? Let's first use the percent formula method. Which involves translating the sentence into an algebraic equation. 25% is 25 over 100, or 0.25. You can use either one. Of before a number is a multiplication, so of what number is times n, or times whatever letter you want to use to represent what number. And then is, or any form of is, whether past tense, plural, or whatever, like was or were, means equals. And then 8. 25 and 100 can each be divided by their greatest common factor, 25, to get 1 and 4. 1/4 times n is 1/4 n. And then to get rid of a fraction that's multiplying a variable, multiply each side by the reciprocal of the fraction flipped upside down. Now we can cancel out 4 on top with 4 on the bottom, and 1 on top with 1 on the bottom when multiplying. 8 times 4 is 32. 32 divided by 1 is 32, so n equals 32. Let's check now. Let's see if 25% of 32 really is 8. So we can make it 25 over 100, but this time let's practice using a decimal. 25% is equal to 0.25. Since percent tells you how many hundredths you have, 25% is 25 hundredths. And the first decimal place is the tenths place. The second decimal place is the hundredths place. So since this goes to the hundredths place, 0.25 is equal to 25 hundredths, which is 25%. Or to convert a percent into a decimal, move the decimal point 2 places to the left. If there is no decimal point, imagine it being at the end of the number. Of before a number is multiplication, so of 32 is times 32. Is 8 means equals 8. 32 times 0.25, 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1, 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16, start the second row with a 0, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, add it together, 1 plus 1 plus 6 is 8. There are 2 decimal places total in the multiplication problem, so we need 2 decimal places in the answer. That's 8.00, which of course is 8. So we get 8 equals 8. Which of course is true, therefore n equals 32 must be the correct answer. Now let's use the proportion method to practice that. The proportion method is setting up 2 equal ratios, or 2 equal fractions in other words. So we have 25%, which is 25 over 100, and then it's always equal, the percent is always equal to is number over the of number. The is number in this case is 8, because it says is 8, and the of number we don't know, that's what we're solving for. Let's use n to represent that. We have equal fractions, so we can cross multiply, so multiply the diagonals and make them equal to each other. 20, I'll move over here. So 25 times n is 25n. 100 times 8 is 800. So we have 25n equals 800. Divide each side by 25. Since n is being multiplied by 25, to get rid of the 25, you do the opposite and divide each side by 25. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do the same thing to the other side to balance it out. Now we can cancel out 25 on top with 25 on the bottom because 25n divided by 25 is 1n, and 1 times n is just n. 800 divided by 25, let's work that out. 25 goes into 80 3 times. 3 times 25 is 75. 80 minus 75 is 5. Bring down the next digit. 25 goes into 50 exactly 2 times. And there are no digits left to bring down, so we can stop there. So 32. So n equals 32. Now let's review section 7.7, estimate with percents. Use compatible numbers to estimate with percents. Let's estimate Let's estimate 47% of 1,802. The whole point of estimation is to figure something out quickly and easily in your head if all you need is an answer that's close enough and not exact. So to help us with estimating, there are certain basic fractions, decimals, and percents that you should memorize. The fractions you should memorize for their decimal and percent equivalents are 1 over 100, which is 0.01, because that has 1 in the hundredths place. And that's 1%, since percent tells you how many hundredths you have. 10%, or actually 1/10 is, 1/10 is 0.1, because that has 1 in the tenths place, the first decimal place. And 0.1 is the same thing as 0.10, because putting zeros at the end of decimal numbers does not affect the value. 1/10 is equal to 10 hundredths if you multiply 1/10 by 10 over 10. And so that's 10%. And let's see, we have 1/8, which is 0.125. If you work out 1 divided by 8, you get 0.125, which is 12.5%. And 1/5, 1 divided by 5 is 0.2 if you work that out. Or 1/5 multiplied by 2 over 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1, is 2/10, which is 0.2 because there's 2 in the tenths place. And then 0.2 is the same thing as 0.20, because again, tacking on zeros at the end of decimal numbers does not affect the value. And 2/10 equals 20 hundredths if you multiply 2/10 by 10 over 10. So that's 20%, because you move the decimal point 2 places to the right to get a percent. And 1/4, if you work out 1 divided by 4, you get 0.25, which is 25%. Or multiply 1/4 by 25 over 25 to get 25 hundredths, which is 0.25 because it goes to the hundredths place, the second decimal place. And then percent tells you how many hundredths you have, so 0.25 is 25%, or 25 hundredths is 25%. And then, let's see, 1/3 is equal to 0.3 repeating. If you work out 1 divided by 3, it's 0.333 going on forever. The bar over the 3 indicates the 3 goes on forever. And 1/3 is equal to 33 1/3%. Because 100% is all of something, 1/3 of 100% is 33 1/3%. And then 1/2 is 0.5 or 0.50, which is 50%. And finally, the last thing there's a couple more. 2/3, 2 divided by 3 is 0.6 repeating. 0.66666 going on forever. And that's 66 2/3%. Since 2/3 of 100% is 66 2/3%. And finally, 3/4, 3 divided by 4 is 0.75, or 3/4 multiplied by 25 over 25 is 75 hundredths, which is 0.75, which is 75%. So you should memorize all of these. This, this, this. I'm just trying to make sure it's nicely organized here. I think the circles may help a little bit with that. So yeah, memorize these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 basic fraction decimal percent conversions. Okay, so once you have that memorized, it's much easier to estimate. So 47% of all those percents in the table, so to speak, that I just drew, 47% is the closest to 50%. And 1,802 can be rounded to 1,800. And I'll put a squiggly equal sign for approximately equal to. 50% is 1/2, because 50 is 1/2 of 100%. Or we can make that 50 over 100, since percent tells you how many hundredths you have. Of before numbers multiplication, so it's times 1,800. You can cancel out 2 zeros on top with 2 zeros on the bottom. 50 times 18 is 900. Or like I said, 50% is 1/2. 1/2 of 1,800 is 900. So 47% of 1,802 is approximately 900. Let's do one more estimating one. Let's estimate, I need to go back to the page here, 4% of 48. 4% of 48. Okay, so it can be helpful to use 1% or 10%. First of all, let's round 48 to 50, since they're pretty close. 1%, let's first find 1% of 50. 1% of 50 is 0.5. Because 50, if there's no decimal point, you can imagine the decimal point being at the end of the number, and converting a decimal, 1% of 50. Okay, so you can think of it this way. 1% is 1 over 100. Of 50 means times 50. You can cancel out 1 0 on top with 1 0 on the bottom, since we're multiplying. And 5 on top can be canceled out, can be canceled out with 10 on the bottom if you divide each by 5 to get 1 and 2. 1 times 1 is 1, so that's 1/2. And 1 divided by 2, if you work that out, 2 goes into 1 0 times. 2 goes into 10 exactly 5 times, with no digits left to bring down, so we can stop there. So it's 0.5. Or just think 1/2 times 5 over 5 is 5/10, and 5 in the tenths place is 0.5. The shortcut is, when multiplying by 1%, when finding 1% of something, If there's no decimal point, imagine it being at the end of the number. Move the decimal point 2 places to the left to get 0.50. Zeros at the end of decimal numbers do not make a difference. So you can get rid of that 0, it's 0.5. So when finding 1% of something, you could also divide by 100, since 100% divided by 100 is 1%. Oh, okay, so now we're trying to find 4% of 48. 1% times 4 is 4%. 4% is 4 times as much as 1%. So 4% of 40, or 4% of 48, or 4% of 50 is going to be 4 times as much as 1% of 50. So 4 times as much as 0.5. And 0.5 times 4, 4 times 5 is 20, carry the 2, 4 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. There's 1 decimal place total in the multiplication problem, so we need 1 decimal place in the answer. 2.0 is 2. So 4% of 50 is 2. So 4% of 48 is approximately 2. All right, let's review section 7-8, percent increase. Anna starts her sticker collection with 20 stickers. After 1 year, she has 150 stickers. What is the percent increase in the number of her stickers? So she goes from 20 stickers to 150 stickers. Let's find the percent increase. The formula for percent increase is the new value minus the old value over the old value. So that's going to be 150 minus 20 over 20, which is 130 over 20. We can cancel out 1 0 on top with 1 0 on the bottom. 13 divided by 2 is 6, remainder 1. Keep the same denominator 2. 6 1/2 is equal to 6.5. And then to convert from a decimal to a percent, move the decimal point 2 places to the right. If you run out of digits, put as many zeros as you need. 1, 2. That's 650%. Once the decimal point is at the end of the number, you don't need it anymore. So it was a 650% increase. Going from 20 stickers to 150 stickers. And that concludes our review for the lessons we covered this week, section 7.5 to 7.8. Thank you.